Capitol Report is a production of Senate Media Services.
This week, legislative leaders join us to review the achievements of the just completed legislative session. We talk about unfinished work that may bring state lawmakers back to the Capitol, and we explore ways to make the process more transparent. Stay tuned for this week's Capitol Report. Welcome to this week's program. I'm Shannon Loehrke. The state's new two-year budget takes effect July 1st. Joining me to offer her perspective on what was accomplished during the 2019 legislative session is the Speaker of the House, Melissa Hortman. Thanks for joining me today.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Following the 2018 election, which gave control of the House to the DFL, your members brought a lot of energy. Minnesota has divided government. So in the end, how do you rate this first session?
It was a very successful budget year. You know, Minnesota has seen a lot of dysfunction in its budget years in the previous two cycles. 2015 ended in chaos and a need for a special session to finish the budget in the middle of June. 2017 ended up with the line item veto of the legislative budget, a lawsuit by the Republican House and the Republican Senate against DFL Governor Mark Dayton. So when you look at this year, what you see is functional government. You see competent leaders coming together, reaching a bipartisan compromise to keep the state functioning and funding the most important values that Minnesotans have: education, healthcare, economic security.
Now, you mentioned compromise, which is my next question. The initial House DFL budget proposal approached $50 billion. In the end, the agreement that was reached is around $48 billion. Are you satisfied with the compromise that was made to reach a final agreement?
Yeah, this is the best we can do with a Republican Senate. What you see with the way the budget deal was crafted, that we really need increased revenue in order to invest in the things that Minnesotans care about. So you saw us using $491 million of budget reserves in order to make sure we had adequate education funding. Now, why did we have to dip into the reserves to make sure we had strong education funding? It was because Minnesota Senate Republicans refused to raise any revenue. What we really have in Minnesota is a need to raise revenue going forward. We have to bring inflation back into the forecast and accept that as an economic reality of our lives, and then understand that if we want to put the investments we need in education in the next few years, we are going to need increased revenue to do that, because the forecast is not forecasting enough revenue for us to take care of our schools in the way that Minnesotans would like us to. So I think the result of a $48 billion budget shows that we really have needs that are not being met, and that it is time for us to talk about ways that we can increase revenue.
So that said, from your perspective, what were the greatest achievements of the session and what are the greatest disappointments?
Well, colossal that we preserved Minnesota's 27-year-old provider tax. This tax helps fund health care for more than 1.2 million Minnesotans. And to lose that stream of revenue and the health care that it provides for Minnesotans would have been devastating. So it was really a substantial achievement. The Governor Walz and I were able to convince Senate Majority Leader Gazelka and his caucus to vote for that revenue to continue. It is a sizable chunk of revenue and is not something that Republicans are generally open to doing. Minority Leader Kurt Daudt, in fact, in the Minnesota House, kind of wanted to shut the whole thing down and camp out till the middle of the summer with the government shutdown to block the provider tax. So it shows you what a difference it made in flipping the House to Democratic control, that we've preserved that incredible resource for Minnesotans. Also, the education funding is really strong in this budget. So we have 2 and 2 on the general education formula, which is kind of the headline story. But beneath the headline is this very important stream of funding, $90 million to address special education in Minnesota. It's really critical that we provide funding expressly for special education. Otherwise, school districts have to provide it, and they find it in other places. So that was a really significant piece of this budget. And then also preserving the 4,000 pre-K spots, which if the House would have stayed Republican, we would not have those 4,000 pre-K slots.
And disappointments?
Well, there's a lot of progressive policy that Minnesotans are asking for. Minnesotans really want 100% clean energy. They want us to do something about gun violence, and they know that the common sense measures that the Minnesota House put forward are ways that we can increase safety in our communities. So I would say Minnesotans are not satisfied with standing still on some of those policy priorities. But the first year of the biennium is really a budget year, and what Minnesotans deserve is a government that works and leaders who can find compromise, and that's what they got this year.
Now, before session started, you came on the program and you spoke of the importance of education, affordable health care, and economic security as sort of the pillars of your DFL caucus. Regarding health care, just to talk about it a little bit more, Governor Walz was on the program last week, and he said basically in terms of health care, we're maintaining the status quo because the reinsurance program will continue and because of the provider tax, which will now continue with no sunset at 1.8%. Mm-hmm. What is needed from your view in order to continue to move towards affordable health care in Minnesota?
Well, Minnesota is in pretty good shape. You know, we're the #2 healthiest state in the country. I think Hawaii beats us by a little bit, and that might have something to do with weather or, you know, tropical breezes or something. But Minnesota has a really strong healthcare environment. Most of us are covered at our employers. And so we do have some pretty big issues we have to address, but we're doing very well. So status quo is an achievement. To not move backwards and to not be like the rest of the country and to continue our Minnesota exceptionalism is really a success story in healthcare. So standing still at an A level is good. The place where we really need to focus is pharmaceutical drugs. I mean, we really should not have people in one of the richest states in the richest country of the world dying because they are rationing their medication. Now, I think Republicans are having some second thoughts about selling out to the pharmaceutical industry during the session. It was very clear that there was a decision made by Senate Republicans and House Republicans that they wanted to kill any reform on insulin. And the reason was their friends in the pharmaceutical industry, the lobbyists, had convinced them that, you know, this was going to be something that was not politically palatable for them. Well, now I think they're having some second thoughts. They're hearing from Minnesotans who are dependent on prescription drugs. And I think Senate Republicans and House Republicans are ready to join House DFLers and Senate DFLers in really pushing the pharmaceutical industry to make their drugs more affordable, especially their life-saving drugs that have low production costs. There's just really no excuse for them gouging consumers.
Well, that leads to another question I had for you, which is the Star Tribune editorial board wrote that the failure to pass an emergency insulin supply bill cast a pall over this entire legislative session. Now, Senate Republicans have asked Governor Walz to call a special session around Labor Day to move legislation forward that would provide emergency insulin to people who can't afford it. Senator Housley also mentioned epileptic drugs, other drugs like that. Is this a good idea, a special session to work on emergency supplies of drugs?
Absolutely, especially if it's not a proposal that's crafted by the pharmaceutical industry and that's not a sellout to the pharmaceutical industry. So there's no reason for us to come in if Senate Republicans remain wedded to the proposed solutions put forward by the pharmaceutical industry itself, which accepts no responsibility for the problems that it's caused in opioids or insulin or any range of other drugs that Minnesotans need. So we absolutely should come in to do a special session and take care of this issue, not just for those who use insulin, but for prescription drugs more broadly. But it shouldn't be just a show for Senate Republicans to look like they care and look like they want to do something when all that they're really willing to do is something that the pharmaceutical industry is promoting itself.
Before we go, this has been your first foray as Speaker in crafting a budget. What have you learned? What more reform would you like to see happen?
Well, as I forecast before the whole process started, we need to come up with budget targets earlier. And I was pleased that Senator Gazelka and Governor Walz agreed with me that we should have targets by May 6th. I was displeased that they didn't regard that as a real deadline. We need some sort of reform that has the hammer dropping on a deadline for budget targets earlier, because that process of putting together these bills really should be happening in the conference committees and really should be happening in public. Now, the good thing is we had 3 weeks of conference committee meetings, so we had a lot of decisions made in the public, far, far more than if you look at the 2015 session, where bills were literally crafted in smoke-filled rooms with lobbyists with no public input. And in 2017, where it was a rushed, harried process with very little public process. So we have moved down the path of openness and transparency, but there's still quite a distance to go. And people have to regard the earlier deadlines as something meaningful that they're going to stick to.
Speaker Hortman, always a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
State lawmakers finalized a new 2-year budget, which goes into effect July 1st. Joining me in the studio is Senate Tax Chair Roger Chamberlain, who played an instrumental role in finalizing a tax agreement with Governor Tim Walz and House Speaker Melissa Hortman. Welcome.
Good to see you.
Thanks for being here. Throughout this legislative session, the Senate Republican caucus kept hitting the point that you want to do what's right for Minnesota. Did you accomplish what you set out to achieve? Is this budget right for Minnesota?
Well, it's the best we could get, right? We have split government, so to that extent, that's what happens. You could probably guarantee there's 5.4 million Minnesotans that are to some degree happy or unhappy with what happened because you have split government, but we got it done. To the extent that we did what's right for the state, I believe from our perspective we did. We kept spending down to 6.3%, I believe, for the biennium, which is down from the 10% disastrous increase we had back in 17. So we kept spending in check with inflation and other things in the state. We also, and a lot of good things across the board for both in policy and spending for all the areas and agencies. But we also stopped $12 billion of disastrous, destructive, ruinous tax increases as well. So I think Minnesota did the best we got the best we could for the state under the conditions. Some people, we win some, we lose some, but I think under the circumstances the state came out okay.
So the evening that the agreement was announced between the governor, Senate Majority Leader Gazelka, Speaker Hortman, Senator Gazelka spoke about the major accomplishment being the second tier tax rate reduction. You played an instrumental role in securing this. How will this tax cut, this 0.25% tax cut for the second tier, how will that help Minnesotans?
Well, obviously we're always looking for more relief and opportunity for Minnesotans. To me, that's what tax policy is. You have to fund the functions of the state, but you also have to respect the people that are paying the bills and working hard to do it. And we have to remember those people. We beat them up, they're not going to continue to do it. And we've seen the results of that. So we are moving in the right direction. Wanted more always, like I said, it'd be nice to have more for the people of the state so they can continue to live and grow and choose and dream and innovate and create the way they want and keep the state going. But the tax relief that we got is a step in the right direction, not only for the middle class, but also for another modest reduction for Social Security tax reductions. We started in 17, there's a little bit more to it. So it's moving in the right direction. It's where we have to go. It's what we have to continue to do. And it's better than a tax increase. So they're going to see a lot of relief across the board for lower and middle income taxpayers in the state. So it's good direction, good plan, good idea.
For several sessions now, you've been a champion of the tax credit that would provide scholarships for low-income students to go to a school of their choice. Mm-hmm. That, once again, did not make it into the final bill. But from your perspective, there are other things that presumably will help Minnesota students this next 2 years. What happened with education?
Well, look, I think education needs reform. It really does. We have a lot of great teachers, a lot of good schools out there. But the kids need more opportunities. They're just being held back. And we need to allow the teachers and educators to create. They're the professionals, they're just not. And the opportunities for the kids aren't there. But we will continue to work for those 78% of the Hispanics and 90% of the African Americans, by the way, who want these scholarships and want these opportunities. And they're going to be hearing from us the rest of this summer and through the next session. This thing is not going to go away. They cannot continue to poo-poo this thing and kick it down the road. We will have this. The people will have this. Now, as far as overall education plans, came out okay. They did get more money, about a 5.1% increase, just under $1 billion, plus 2% each year in the formula. We didn't get what we wanted in equalization in the tax bill. Honestly, the House, the Democrats did not want to give the money to the equalization. They gave it to cities and counties in massive amounts. Massive amounts went to cities and counties. And again, the poorer property wealth districts are going to suffer for that. So overall, the education funding did well. 2% on the formula, 5.1% increase overall. with some reforms. We did get dyslexia screening in there, which is good, and some dyslexia training
And
in
you've always been a
services.
champion for the dyslexia as well.
Yes, the parents and the kids need some help, and we've been working on that for a while. So there are some good policy things in there, and the funding is good and solid for the next couple of years.
Let's talk about health care. What can Minnesotans look forward to in terms of anything regarding lower health insurance rates or lower costs to health care in general?
Well, a couple things. I think one of the big things we did this year is what we call pharmacy benefit management reform. There was a middleman, so to speak, in the process, and it created distortions and inequity and unfairness across the healthcare spectrum and prescription drugs. Now, I'm a free market guy, as it should be, but there are times when the abuses are out there, you had to step in, and that's what was happening. So pharmacy benefit management, that'll reduce costs, stabilize the costs for pharmacies and at pharmacies for prescription medication. We also, reinsurance is on for another 2 years. That will reduce the cost of insurance premiums for those folks in the private market buying insurance. It has decreased them in the past. It will continue to decrease them, so that is ongoing as well. Now, the sick tax is still in there.
The 1.8%
The
provider tax.
1.8%, down from the 2%, but it's still there. That's problematic, but there are some reforms around it, so my understanding is that will prevent some of the fraud that was going on and spending that money in places other than healthcare services.
Your caucus has repeatedly said that transportation funding will be available without a gas tax increase. So that was something that you were able to stop, the gas tax increase. But what will those massive road construction projects, will they continue to happen, and how are those funded?
They will continue to happen. There's about $6.6 billion for the next 2 years in the pipeline from dedicated funds, gas tax, the motor vehicle sales tax, the tab fees we all pay, also from bonding and federal dollars. So there's a lot of money in the pipeline, plus the dedicated money from auto parts sales tax. Auto parts sales tax still goes there. So there's a lot of money in the pipeline for that in the next 2 years. The funds are growing. Now the gas tax, they say the revenue will start to decrease in the coming years. We can manage that and deal with it. But there's plenty of money out there. We did not have to go back to the citizens and gouge them for this. It just wasn't necessary. And by the way, I get a lot of complaints now in the summer about people can't get around the state. So now some roads are good, some are bad.
There's a lot of construction.
Yes, so I think it's good investment for the state. I think it's tax money well spent. But there's plenty of money there. The roads are going to be taken care of. The bridges will be taken care of. There's not a panic, and we did it all without, increasing taxes by $12 billion. So will be good for transportation.
Very quickly, before I let you go, beginning August 1st, drivers will have to pay more attention to the road and less attention to their phones while they're driving. This law took some time to pass, but is it a necessary restriction in your view?
I agree. What I tell people, look, just the people I talk to in my circle, on my side of the aisle, the citizens, they have been telling me that this needs to be done. So if they're saying it, I believe it does. Secondly, driving's a privilege, it's not a right. We understand that. This is not like seat belts. Seat belts is something you inflict upon yourself. It's not like helmets as you inflict it upon yourself. Driving and playing with these phones is dangerous and you can kill people. So I fully support the idea that driving is a privilege and you have rights and a responsibility when you're behind that wheel, because you can kill people. So it's a necessary restriction. It's the right thing to do. People will be fine. We'll get around this.
Senator Roger Chamberlain, thank you.
Thank you very much. Good seeing you again.
Following yet another legislative session with a divided state government, House Minority Leader Kurt Daudt joins me to assess the effectiveness of the session and whether reforms are required to increase transparency at the end of the legislative session. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Lawmakers did pass a new state budget, albeit a few days late. Prior to the special session, you told Minnesota Public Radio, quote, This has been the least productive, least transparent session in the history of the state. Minnesotans should be ashamed of the process at the end of the legislative session. Of late, it's not unusual to have chaos at the end. Was this one really that much different?
It was. This one was bad, and I think, for folks at home, maybe they all look bad, and it doesn't, But this is a session that started with the majority, at least in the House, telling us they were going to do it differently and they were going to do it better, and they actually did it worse. The legislature didn't only put 1 of 10 budget bills on the governor's desk prior to the end of session, the regular session. The last time that happened was 1985. I think we need to do better. The other problem that we had was the kind of closed door negotiations at the end. I don't think that serves anyone well. And frankly, when you don't pass a budget before the end of the regular session to put on the governor's desk, and then let the governor sit at the table to decide what's going to be in the bills that you send to him, that's actually a constitutional issue. You're giving the executive branch the ability to legislate, and that's not their right, according to our Constitution. The legislature decides what they're going to send and put on the governor's desk. The governor then can sign, veto, or line item veto. Those are his constitutional rights. But by letting him decide what's going to be in the legislation, you're actually letting the executive branch legislate, which is not how our government was designed.
Now, you mentioned the closed-door negotiations, and you referred to it as a tribunal, and it was made up of the governor, the speaker, and the Senate Majority Leader. 2 years ago, there were 5 people behind closed doors because it included the minority leaders of both bodies. And this time, you and Senator Bach were left out. Should you have been included?
Well, I think so. In fact, I had a conversation with Governor Walz on the night of the special session, just the two of us, where I said to him, I think it is important for us to have the minorities included in that process. And I think the lack of final passage of a bonding bill is really kind of demonstrates that the failure of what happens when you don't bring in the minority leaders into those negotiations. There are certain conversations that are appropriate to have without the minority leaders, but when they need us for votes, for suspension of rules, for passage of bonding bills, those sorts of things, pretty important to have the minority involved. And I think it gives you a better, more well-rounded budget.
Governor Walz was on the program last week, and I asked him about the closed-door negotiations at the end. He said part of the problem is that people can't compromise in public anymore, and that's why it has to be done behind closed doors. Do you agree with that?
I actually would say the opposite. I would say, Governor Walz and the Democrats probably didn't want to negotiate in public because they were afraid the public would find out what they were asking for. I mean, $12 billion of tax increases at a time when we've got a surplus, raising the cost of health care, at the same time cutting nursing homes $68 million. There are some pretty shameful things that the Democrats were proposing, and I don't mean to be super partisan about it, but I think if the public knew what was going on behind those closed doors, the public would have been shocked. I was pretty proud of the funding we gave to nursing homes during my time as speaker, and shatter some perceptions, right? Republicans want to increase funding for our most vulnerable aging loved ones in nursing care facilities, and Democrats want to cut funding for those facilities. I want the public to know that. I want those negotiations to be public so that the public can see what's going on behind closed doors. And I think you'd have a more well-rounded budget that represents Minnesota, more balanced. And unfortunately, behind closed doors, you get people asking for things that they wouldn't ask for in public, and they shouldn't ask for in public.
Because there was a special session, you did get a little bit of say because you were asked to agree to suspend the rules so that it could be done in a shorter period of time. In order to do that, I read that you secured some changes that you believe will enhance transparency in the next legislative session. So what are those changes that you were able to secure?
Well, I think the biggest one is, and we spent it's interesting, we spent the first day of session pointing out that the new committee structure in the House, and this is sometimes in the weeds, the public doesn't always understand it, but we spent the first day of session complaining that this new committee structure process would lack the transparency that would allow people to follow where bills were going. And that's important because it's the committee process where the public can actually come in and testify. Under the old process, when a bill was in a committee and it was leaving the committee, they would make a motion to recommend that bill be approved and be re-referred to such and such committee, so you knew where it was going. Under their new structure, they could just do it by memo from the Ways and Means Committee, and they could move it multiple times in a day, and the public really couldn't follow that. So one of the things we secured, which I think will be the most important for increasing transparency, is to go back to our old system, which the public was used to, and I think has the kind of transparency that the public should expect.
So speaking of committees, Governor Walz also said that he had to beg Senate Republicans to hear his budget plans. So when we get to the end of the session, there's often complaints that one party doesn't know what the other party wants, that they're not aware of what's in these bills that get passed. Would a solution be for, regardless of which body is in control, that they hear the plans that represent both points of view so that everybody is aware of all the legislation that's being proposed?
Well, we really should do it that way. In my 4 years as Speaker, we always brought up the governor's budget bills and had hearings on them in the pertinent committees so that the public would know what was in them, and it gave the commissioners an ability to come in and testify on why they wanted those things and such. I think one of the problems with our legislative session is that we've figured out how to pack 5 months, how to pack 1 day's worth of work into 5 months, and then 5 months worth of work into 1 day at the end. And what we really need to do is figure out how we spend some of the session learning and talking about what's in each other's proposals, exactly like you're suggesting, and then we spend a larger part of the session actually working out the differences. Because right now, we spend that last 2 weeks, this time it was completely behind closed doors with no conference committees, no public committee process. Nobody knew what was in the bills. For those of us in the minority, we didn't know what was in these bills until literally they were posted publicly just sometimes hours or minutes before we were expected to vote on them. That's not transparency. We need to figure out how to expand that. And it's not an easy question. And I don't know that I have the answer right now.
Right.
But we together, for the sake of making sure the public has some say in this and we have a better process, I think we need to figure that out together.
Quickly before we go, there was a measure that passed both bodies that would impose a tax on insulin makers that would provide funding for people in a diabetic emergency.
Yep.
Senate Republicans have called for they want Governor Walz to call a special session this fall to move that through because it didn't make it in the final bill. Right. What are your thoughts on that?
I think this is absolutely the wrong approach, and this is what's wrong with government. When we think we can step in and solve a problem, the companies that do the insulin, that make these insulin products, actually already have programs where people can access free insulin that are better than what's being proposed by the state. I'm always the one that loves to talk about something in a really simple way because it makes people say, oh yeah, that doesn't make any sense. So their proposal is to tax insulin, and somehow that's going to make insulin more affordable and more accessible. That doesn't make any sense. You don't make insulin more affordable by making it more expensive. That is absolutely the wrong approach. If you want to have some discussions about transparency or requirements for manufacturers to offer a cheaper product or to offer it cheaper to certain people, fine, but you don't tax insulin and then say you're making it less expensive. And that raises healthcare costs for everyone. And that's absolutely the wrong approach.
We have to leave it there. Minority Leader Daudt, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Shannon Loehrke, and on behalf of all of us at Senate Media Services, thank you for joining us.